When we talk about development, countries such as Switzerland take the gold medal. I'm standing in one of those gold medal cities right now. This city, Zurich, is one of the wealthiest places on earth. The banks, the brands, the institutions of global governance are all here. Like any competition, where there are winners, there are also losers. The economic progress that we have seen in developed economies contrasts with the erratic economic growth, poverty, unemployment, income inequalities that we see on the broader landscape of the African continent. In Africa, 1 in every 3 people lives below the poverty line. Unemployment among the youth is rampant, and yet Africa sits on top of 30% of the world's mineral reserves. 65% of the world's uncultivated arable land lies in Africa. Africa is not poor because it lacks resources. Africa is poor because it does not own what happens to those resources. That is what today's episode is about, and it has a name: beneficiation. Hello, and welcome to Alternative Narratives, a space dedicated to Africa's development journey, where we challenge conventional views using data, history, and economic insight. I'm Wisdom Zimuto. On the vast lands of Africa, local farmers toil their fields to grow tons and tons of cocoa. Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana together supply 65% of the world's cocoa. Without them, there is no global chocolate industry. And yet, the average cocoa farmer in Côte d'Ivoire earns less than $1 a day. Their reward is almost nothing. Unprocessed cocoa makes its way to factories in Switzerland, where value addition takes place. Here is what that value addition looks like, step by step. Harvesting, pods are cut from trees in Africa. Fermentation, beans fermented for 5 to 7 days on the farm. This is the last step Africa controls. Drying and bagging, sun-dried, graded, packed into big bags. Shipping, exported as raw material beans. The commodity price is locked in here. Roasting in European and North American factories. Value begins to multiply. Grinding and pressing, producing cocoa liquor, cocoa butter, cocoa powder, mixing, smoothing, giving chocolate its texture and taste. Molding and packaging, the physical bar is created. Branding and retail, a name, a story, a price point. A raw bean worth cents become a product worth francs. We see the final product in one of the most expensive streets. These bars right here sell for more than 10 Swiss francs. The cocoa farmer's share of that price, 2 to 3 centimes, not francs, centimes. These products also make the journey back to Africa at a price that empowers the West while retaining Africa as a customer. Africa grows the ingredient, exports it for almost nothing, then imports the finished bar at a full retail price, paying with foreign exchange it can barely afford, for value that was added to its own raw materials somewhere else. In simple terms, how does this process disempower Africa and empowers the developed world? Value addition does 4 things, and Africa is missing on all of them. Number 1, employment. When Switzerland roasts and packages cocoa, Swiss workers are employed: technicians, logistics managers, marketers, retailers. When Africa ships raw beans, these jobs go with them. 2, economic growth. Manufacturing and processing generate GDP multipliers that raw commodity exports do not. Wealth creation. Processed goods command premium prices. The brand, the story, the refinement, that is where wealth accumulates. Africa earns the commodity price, the processor earns the brand price. Trade power. The country that exports finished goods negotiates from strength, and a country that exports only raw materials is a price taker, dependent on what the commodity market offers. These 4 things are what Africa is losing, and as a result, unemployment, over 30% youth unemployment in many African countries. Poor and unsustained economic growth because commodity-dependent economies boom and crash with global prices. Persistent poverty. the income never flows back to the farmer or to the community. And trade deficits. Africa imports the processed versions of what they've exported raw, draining foreign currency reserves. The story of cocoa is just a tip of the iceberg. Every year, Africa exports hundreds of billions of dollars in raw materials to the developed world. Let me show you what that looks like by mineral and what comes back. Cobalt, at least 70% of global supply comes from DRC, goes to China for processing, powers the batteries in every electric vehicle and smartphone on earth. The DRC earns a royalty on all. Copper. Only Chile and Peru, these two countries, produce more copper annually than Zambia. Copper runs inside every electrical cable in this city, in every building in this street, smelted and refined in Europe and Asia. Zambia earns the commodity price. Platinum. South Africa and Zimbabwe together possess 70 to 90% of platinum global reserves. Platinum is used in catalytic converters, fuel cells, jewelry, refined and manufactured elsewhere. Diamonds. Botswana, Angola, and Zimbabwe, these three countries combined produce nearly 60% of the world's rough diamonds. They live uncut, polished in Antwerp and Mumbai, set in Paris and Geneva, sold elsewhere at luxury prices. Lithium. Lithium is at the center of the green energy transition. Zimbabwe is a key contributor to the world's lithium mining. The batteries are made in China, the cars are sold in Germany and California. Oil. Nigeria is one of the world's largest oil producers. For decades, Nigeria exported crude and imported refined petroleum from its own oil. Coffee. Ethiopia earns 2.65 billion annually from coffee exports, a record. The global coffee market is worth 460 billion. The farmers earn $1 per kg, the branded cup of cafe, nearly 6 to 8 Swiss francs. Annually, Africa imports finished goods made from the raw materials it exported and allowed value addition to occur elsewhere. The continent ships out the ingredient, it buys back the product with interest. The economic data makes the argument impossible to ignore. Switzerland, which refines between 50 to 70% of the world's gold, processes significant quantities of African cocoa, and houses the world's largest commodity trading firms, has a GDP per capita of over $100,000. It produces almost none of those raw materials it transforms. Côte d'Ivoire, which supplies 65% of global cocoa, has a GDP per capita of $2,500. The DRC, which supplies 70% of the world's cobalt, has a GDP per capita of $650. One of the lowest in the world for a country sitting on top of one of the most strategically important minerals in the 21st century. They share supply chain, they do not share the same outcomes. The difference is where the value is added. And the employment story is the same. Processing creates skilled jobs. Raw material extraction creates far less secure jobs, heavily dependent on commodity prices that African countries have no power to set. But a few countries are beginning to understand the benefits of value addition. So our hope for Africa is not lost. In recent years, a few countries have taken decisive steps, and what they have achieved shows exactly what is possible when Africa refuses to accept the old arrangement. Just to give examples, Botswana said no to exporting uncut diamonds, negotiated with De Beers to bring the global diamond sorting and aggregation operation in Gaborone. Botswana now captures the value of sorting, grading, and selling rough diamonds, not just mining them. GDP per capita has grown from among the lowest in Africa at independence to over 7,000 today. That is the diamond story. Zimbabwe banned export of raw lithium ore, forcing companies to process locally or not at all. International pressure was imminent. Zimbabwe held the line. The lithium story is still being written, but the refusal is the right first move. I came to Europe to stand in the places where Africa's resources end up. The chocolate shops, the jewelry windows, the commodity trading offices. And what I found was not a mystery. It was a choice. A choice made by systems and trade rules that decided where value would be added and where it would not. But what Botswana proved, and Zimbabwe is beginning to prove, is that it does not have to stay that way. Beneficiation is not a radical idea. It is the most basic economic logic. Add value to what you have, where you have it, for the benefit of your own people. Every country that is wealthy today did exactly this. And the African countries that are beginning to take that step are writing the next chapter of this history. These are stories that are changing the African narrative, one resource at a time. If you want to understand Africa's development story, you have to understand beneficiation. And if you want to change it, you have to demand it. This is Alternative Narrative. Thank you all for watching and join me in the next narrative.